All right. We're pretty much live here, everybody, which I think is really cool. This will be a kind of a, I think, terrific panel here that we'll get going on. Um, all right. Um, yeah, I think we're live.
Facebook world.
Oh, what up? All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our WMJS Jazz Talk. My name is Jordan Van Hebert. I'm on the board of directors. Wow, if I can talk, of the West Michigan Jazz Society. I'm relatively new to the board, and my good friend Kevin Jones and I have been working on topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the board. And one of those things is to get some of our young jazz musicians out here talking about how they approach the music, how it gives them life. So I'm so thrilled to have this great panel. Here, there are many great musicians. Spoiler alert, most of them are saxophone players. I did not intend that, as I was telling our panelists, but it just so happened I was like, oh, Kev would be good for this, and oh, Houston would be good for this, and and I got to get Tim up in here. And it just so happened that it was like, oh, everybody's a saxophone player. My bad. Anyway, this will be a fun panel. I'd like to introduce some of our panelists here. And actually, I'd like to let our panelists introduce themselves. They'll do that better than I will. Let's start with Tim Greamy.
Hi, everybody. My name's Tim Greamy. I'm a performance major right now. I'm a senior at Grand Valley State University. I am one of the many saxophone players on this panel today. I don't know, I originally hail from Troy, Michigan. That's where I was raised as a child and was originally born and adopted out of South Korea.
Cool. Let's go on to Houston Patton.
Okay, I'm Houston Patton, like he just said. I'm from the Detroit, Michigan area. Belleville, Michigan is where I live. I'm a sophomore at Hope College, and I am a jazz performance and a computer science major.
Whoa, jazz performance and computer science. You better slow down there, man. You better slow down. All right, next we have the amazing Judah Guerra. Judah, you wanna say hello to all the good folks out there?
Hey, Facebook, how's it going? My name is Judah Guerra. I'm a senior at East Kentwood High School. I'm the only non-saxophonist on this wonderful panel. A trombone player. So trying to represent brass. No, but I'm a band leader for GR Groove, jazz band here. Kevin Brewster's also on that, and we'll have some stuff coming out here shortly. But yeah, I love jazz. I plan to study it in college and keep meeting saxophone players and keep having talks with them. So yeah.
And let's go to Kevin Brewster next. Kevin, you want to introduce yourself to our your adoring fans here?
Yeah, hey everybody doing? My name is Kevin Brewster. I'm a senior at East Kentwood High School. I'm a saxophone player. It's like how everybody is on the panel, basically, except Judah. But yeah, I've been playing the saxophone ever since 6th grade, so 7, 8 years now. I'm a part of like different groups at East Kentwood High School. Outside, I used to be a part of St. Cecilia Jazz Band. I'm also a part of GR Groove with Judah, just like how you said. And then also, I just forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, basically, yeah.
Wonderful. Welcome, Kevin. We're so excited to have you. And last but not least, we have, oh shoot, where did Michael go? Oh no, Michael has left the building. Michael, we have joining us a special guest from Honduras, Michael Pineda, who is a senior at Hope College. And Michael is a really terrific saxophone player and also a business major. And oh, here he is, making an entrance as usual. All right, we'll just give Michael a second to connect to audio here. Hey, Michael, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Pineda. I was born and raised in Minnesota, but I'm currently in Honduras, which is where I currently live. I took a remote semester, so I'm over here right now. I'm a business major and a jazz studies minor at Hope College in Holland, Michigan, with Houston. And yeah, you guys are gonna have to pardon me. I was at a rehearsal for a local big band, and the rehearsal ran late, so you can't do much there. So I'm in the car right now, but I'm glad to make it. Thank you so much, Dr. Mahima, for inviting me to
No,
be a part of this panel.
no, that's cool. Don't worry about it. We're so happy that you're here. I'm so happy that you could make the hang. So today we're here to discuss what I call the Tony Williams effect. And the reason I'm saying this is because when he started playing with Miles Davis, Tony Williams was 17 years old, which do we have any of our panelists? Are any of you 17 right now?
Yep, 17.
Kevin, 17. Judah, how about you?
I'm 18. I just
You're
turned
18. You
Yeah.
just turned 18. So you're just a little bit older than Tony was when he started playing with Miles. Well, Tony also played with Sam Rivers at the age of 13. And so I think when you think about the current state of the music, of course there are our heroes that we look up to who are entering a lot of their 80s and 70s, 90s. I'm thinking of the great Sonny Rollins, the great Benny Golson, among others. There are so many. I would name more, but then I keep leaving people off because I'm forgetful. But that we have so many bygone heroes and those who are still with us. But the young people have a lot to say for this music as well. Jazz or Black American music, as it's known, is one of the most rapidly evolving art forms that existed. If you think about it, in the space of the late 19th century and the early to mid 20th century, think about how much change happened in the art form. And so when you reflect upon that, I'm wondering what you guys think of this music right now. So we'll just we can go around, but if you have something to say, you can go ahead and say it and unmute yourself. But how do you guys view this art form that's just shy of a century and a half old here?
Oh well, to be honest, how I feel how the art form is today is it's just rapidly growing, like, and it's changing every day. So that's what's like beautiful about like jazz and how like it's such a like a beautiful art form because like from like the early big band eras and like how it first started at the beginning with spiritual hymns and how that like rapidly could continue to grow, and then it came like brass bands and then like big bands and then like bebop, and it continue to grow. It's the same thing today because like every day you see something new, like everybody's doing different things. And it's also that like like if you listen to like Dizzy, Charlie Parker and them and stuff like that, like still some of the language that they play in their music is like still like out of this world, and you just like like what is he playing and like stuff like that. So like it's still, I would say like jazz is like undiscoverable because like it's like it's still like you just can't, it just changes like every day.
Yeah, and like you said, Kevin, there's a timelessness to it. Bird's language, Dizzy's language is just as fresh as it was when it was just coming out of their horns at Mittens. So yeah, beautiful. Any other thoughts on the kind of where you have experienced the music in your lives?
Yeah, I can definitely talk a little bit about just kind of my experience with jazz. Something that I think about is I'm definitely a music lover. Like I love all types. Well, I won't say love all types of music. I know how to appreciate music. I love like rap. I love hip hop. I love like funk, like pop, like rock. And jazz is still the music that keeps me the most intellectually engaged and emotionally and honestly spiritually present. And I think that says a lot about the music itself because I've worked in composing and like writing in a lot of different genres and styles. Like I love Latin music too, but still, there's just something about it. And thinking that it all just came out of that tradition that we always talk about, Doc, like the Black American tradition, blues and spiritual hymns, like Kevin said, like it's incredible how far it's come. And right now, I'm still listening to guys like Coleman Hawk. I'm still listening to Lester. Still listening to Disney and Bird, like Kevin said. But there are also these guys. Like I like Bob Reynolds a lot. I love Ben Wendell. Chris Potter, obviously. But I think there is just always more there, and that's my favorite thing about music. So that's my experience. It's, like you said, timelessness, but also this unlimited depth to the music that I still absolutely love, and I fell in love with it from the beginning. So that's my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do any of our other panelists have anything to say here and weigh in a little bit?
Yeah, I think I really like what Michael said. Like how it's unmeasurable in a way, because there's so many different definitions of what it even is, of what jazz is. And when we talk about like roots and spirituals, I think like someone like Wynton Marsalis would say it's always jazz always has to have like the blues in it, like currently. And some might say it's evolving, like it's got to be modern or whatever. But I think Duke Ellington said, Kevin showed me his video. It was just like what jazz is. It's like a big tree, and the tree has all these different branches that connect, and each branch has its own root, and it connects to other trees and the other everything it touches, but it comes all from one tree. And I just think that's interesting, because like jazz, I think to all of us is something different when we think of it. And I think that's like, and it can be overwhelming sometimes when you're new to the music, but I think that's just like more welcoming, because like it has a home for anyone really to have a voice in it. And I think that's the beauty of it. And like how it's different than other music forms, in that maybe like a more specific genre, you could like, if you don't really like that music, or then you can't really develop from like as an artist in that realm. But jazz, you can really go wherever you want, and we're seeing that now with people swing, Latin, like Michael said, Cuban, like the Cuban rhythms that came in, European, all that. So it's like, I think jazz is really welcoming, and I think that's why I'm here. It's just because I love jazz, like, and that how it welcomed me into it.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I like how you said everybody has a voice, and it's kind of like a tree that go, and the branches go everywhere. To me, jazz is like a quintessential model of how like how society should be, and how you should conduct yourself as an individual. And that's why I love it so much. I mentioned this in the discussion in my jazz history class with Dr. Van Humor. But it's such a model of how like society should work. It's inclusive and of everybody, and you can keep your original thoughts and everything, but at the same time you take from others, you take what you want from others, and they take what you want from, what they want from you, like and I think it's so cool, because I'll listen to the greats. I'll listen to Charlie Parker, Cannonball, Coltrane, Dizzy, but then the next day I'll literally listen to I can listen to Kevin, Michael, Judah, Tim, Dr. Van Humor, and I can learn from them. So you can learn from anybody who's like or in anything. And so I just think that's cool, and it's always more to do, and there's always a new place for you to go. There's never, I believe that there's never like a end point. You're always evolving. What you like now will change later. What you're going through in life will change, and that can influence your playing and everything. So that's why I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Absolutely. And, something really interesting that I'd like to point out that you said, Houston, was that you're always taking from other inspirations. And, really, I think that points to the music as a music of ancestry. This music is music that must respect its roots. It has to acknowledge where it came from, because if it doesn't, it isn't true to itself. So if you play without an acknowledgement of, spirituals, work songs, New Orleans music, et cetera, you have to pay homage to those things. That's why. What style do you think we work on the most in lessons, Houston?
Blues,
Yeah. What else?
like
Bebop, hard
oh
bop, right?
yeah.
And that's for a reason, right? Absolutely. Before we hear from Tim, because I saw him unmute himself, I do want to quick mention that this is a free program put on by the West Michigan Jazz Society, and there is a donation link in the chat somewhere. I think that somebody has put in there. I didn't. I'm having too much fun discussing with these wonderful panelists. But the big thing I want to remind you of is that West Michigan Jazz Society is dedicated to the preservation of this great music, the preservation of its tradition, and the preservation of its culture. And so that's something that we really, and especially with the person who spearheaded this project, one Mr. Kevin Jones. Kevin is, as many people out there know, he was our guest last week, and he has had a very storied career playing with Art Blakey, Max Roach, Whitney Houston, the Isley Brothers, et cetera, et cetera. And so I do want to acknowledge and thank Kevin for his contributions and for spearheading this project. I think we can throw it over to Tim.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think one thing that I find super cool about the music is kind of like what others were saying, that yeah, there's always something that we can learn from other people, and I think that holds true not only from a performer aspect, but in terms of the consumer as well. I think that yeah, there's just as is true with all music, yes, but jazz is like a very much an individualized experience in the case of when you listen to the music. Jude is going to get something out of the recording that's much different than what I'm going to get out of it, which is going to be much different than what Houston and so on and so forth is going to get out of it. And I just think what's really cool is I can listen to a recording literally hundreds of times and think I know absolutely everything that there is to know about it. And I can walk into my roommate's room and we can listen to it together, and I can learn 7 new things that I had never heard before, just because he has a different perspective on the music. And yeah, I just think that's really cool that there's always something that can be learned, and it's not just specific to learning from other musicians, but we can learn from other consumers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to just throw out here, if you have any questions for our amazing panelists tonight, you can feel free to ask those in the chat. We will be more than happy. I'm sure they will be more than happy to answer those questions. So don't be shy down there. Go ahead and ask questions. I have another question for our panelists, though. So let's kind of stay on this topic. So where do you all? So we obviously are in a season where we don't have much going on in the way of concerts. So where are you all turning to hear the music? Where do you hear the music most commonly in this COVID-19 era?
I hear most like new music, or like new people, like people playing stuff on Instagram a lot. I think I've seen a lot more music on Instagram than I have before COVID, because people are trying to share more, and YouTube as well. So a lot of I think social media is really like helping musicians right now, because we can't do a lot of live music. And then I feel like a lot of more people around me who like I can actually come like safely come in contact with are more into music and like want to do more. So like I think it's a push to play more so that we can be ready when like things get better. But yeah, definitely social media. I've seen a lot more music there.
I've been having like little jam sessions like through Instagram kind of or like FaceTime where you could just like I'll call Kevin up and we'll play a tune, and I think that's like the safest way I can play with someone because we're 100 feet apart, whatever, 100 yards, 100 miles. But I agree with that. Like right when you asked the question, like Instagram came right in my head because usually on Spotify, it's hard to check out new stuff, like unless someone sends it to me. Like I'll listen to the same stuff like on my playlist. Like I'll probably listen to, Miles Davis, like Kind of Blue record like 100 times. Uh but like Instagram, like you refresh and it's like 100 new videos of like all the people I follow in New York City, people I follow in Detroit, my peers, Houston, Kev, Tim, Doc, Michael. Like I've been checking out your guys' stuff, and then I just like it because it's so quick to get that like good. Because people don't want to post bad stuff, so it's usually really good quality stuff, and I think that's what's different than some of the big music platforms. I mean, I like YouTube too because that's like a little bit more live. But like I really like checking out live recordings. I think Kevin and I were talking about that earlier. It's just something different, the audio. Like Emmett Cohen Trio's been like killing it with their trios, and you can just go and watch them. But like live streams. But yeah, I think just like Instagram, like just that like I can't find the word, but like yeah, the authentic, just like people pushing out all this content. I'm just trying to like it's never ending, and then of course checking out the like OG albums, like that's never ending too. So I think a lot of people can agree that just like listening to music, like there's really gonna be no end. But yeah, just checking out that stuff.
So who else is checking out a lot of Instagram? Any of our other panelists, are any of you guys finding a lot of your music lately on Instagram? I'm curious. I'm seeing a couple nods here. I'm curious as to whether or not any of you think that, like, what are the pros and cons of that? Like, are there any negatives? Are there any drawbacks? Are there positives here for your generation? Checking out these sorts of things. Because I was talking with Kevin last week, Kevin Jones, and he said that when he was about your age and younger, he would go and hang out, in the city, and he just would go and check out music, check out shows, and Sam Rivers would be playing over here, and etc. So, what are the pros and cons to getting a lot of your music through Instagram or YouTube or other social media? What do you guys think?
Well, during these times, I feel like the pros because like, okay, we could say this that in today's world that the youth are like mainly on social media, like daily, they are on their phones and stuff like that. So like, I feel like as of right now with like this pandemic going on and like all these live streams and like stuff going on, I feel like they will be learning more about music than they would if this pandemic didn't happen. Because I mean, they still post like videos and stuff like that, but like us, for instance, like jazz players, like we usually doing concerts, like playing outside, like we play on the street, like different stuff like that. But like right now, since like all like us musicians can do is to like kind of bond and like still connect with each other, is to post stuff on social media, have live streams. It's like how Judah was saying, have like FaceTimes and be able to like jam with each other and stuff like that and still be able to talk. I mean, it can like with me, to be honest, like just with this COVID stuff going on, like you can lose motivation with like with probably not practicing and stuff like that, because like your music is such a beautiful thing that you want to like connect and be with somebody and play with people and stuff like that. So, you know, but I feel like as of right now, like the pros are like really good because most of like our youth today are on social media and stuff like that. So like once they see the music, then they can still learn, at least and still like hear that stuff like that. But the cons I would say is like that you can't hear it like just like I just said, authentic. Like you can't hear how it is like on like the bandstand. Like you can't hear, you know, like how it is like in person, like what it's like for like a musician to be up on stage and like just hearing it in person is just like a totally different thing than like hearing it over the phone.
Yeah, Kevin, that's a super good point. I really agree with you. And like something that I think about in terms of like authenticity. And I mean, I think I have a mixture of channels, but specifically for discovering new music, I think like Judah actually said, like the pros are just like this endless stream, right? Like social media, this endless stream of just like new content. However, something that I've noticed is one of the my preferred channels are like people. Like I'll ask people that I know have a much larger knowledge of the jazz discography than I do, and that honestly never fails. And the reason is that I think that one of the pros of that, for example, as opposed to social media, is that in social media, I kind of fall into this rabbit hole because I'm just looking at these short clips and I'm like, oh, it's like nasty, like he's sick, he's swinging, whatever. And then, but I'm not like getting like the whole, like, for example, like the album, you know? But when I ask people, I'm like, yo, can you give me an album recommendation? Like almost 99% of the time, they send me something I definitely don't know. And then the pro of that is I get to a whole album to listen to, and then I can kind of continue to explore the artist that way. So, and then another con or another pro, I'm sorry, that I can think of finding new music on Instagram is I'm one of those kids that reaches out to like the musicians. Like if I find a sick musician on Instagram, I'll send them a DM or send her a DM, just cause, like, you know. And honestly, I've gotten quite a few responses that I wouldn't have hoped. So it's a better way of connection. But like I said, the cons maybe like a lack of fluidity, a lack of wholesome like a whole album listening. So yeah, that's kind of my what I think.
Yeah, Michael, I really like what you said about yeah, just getting quick snapshots almost of these things as opposed to something like a full album. And I think we already struggle as jazz musicians to see things that we practice like via transcription or just simply listen to. I at least find that I struggle to see these things manifest in my playing sometimes. And this is after watching or sorry, spending days, weeks, months with these recordings and things. And so what I would say to that is that I think by just getting these short clips of things in our playing such a lasting effect on our overall musicality, just because we only get sometimes, you know, 3 to 5 seconds of something and before moving on to the next thing. And I think that sometimes, yeah, our time may be better spent, you know, delving into a full on album, like you said, Michael. And I think that, yeah, just not to rain on the parade of positivity, but just another con of social media, I think as a whole, is that oftentimes the things that people post on social media are not necessarily the most realistic view of what that thing may look like. Whether it's a picture of you and your family, you and your significant other, or you playing the saxophone. I think there are a lot of times that those just happen to be the 1 in a million, I got a really good take of this, and this is the one I'm posting. And I do think that there can be a little bit of a danger in that, like I find it in myself, sometimes the Instagram scrolling can really get down on me, just because it's just, there is hours and hours and hours of just lots of killer musicians or killer posts. And I think, yeah, sometimes it can just be a lot. And sometimes we just need a little break from it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take, Tim. So we had a couple questions come in, and I want to address some of those. First question we had is from Natalie, and Natalie asks, what do the panelists think that the Jazz Society and other organizations need to do to get younger people more interested in jazz? I'd like to hear from all of our panelists on this one because I don't know, I just have an inkling that you might have something to say.
Well, you want to talk, Judah?
Sure, bro. Sure. I'll talk to you. Sure. I was just gonna say, well, I would respond to that by saying there are already a lot of youth that love it, and I think because usually like I had a span of time I was like, man, I got to get all my friends on jazz. Like, why aren't they liking it? And I think like it should be more natural because we can't force the music really on anyone. We can't force jazz, down the youth's throat because that's really not, really our culture's music right now. But the youth, the hundreds of youth that are loving it right now, I think we can connect. I think we should try to, connect that because we talk about timelessness, and in Grand Rapids, for example, like all the generations that play jazz right now, if we try to connect that, like, our age right now, all the young people with the older people, that would do more beauty because like someone would see, oh man, that's a 6-year-old playing with a 16-year-old, like Miles and Tony Williams. And because there's already hundreds of youth that love it, that love the music. And, we're not saying, we're there yet. We're always getting better. But I would just say like advocate for the people that like support the young musicians, like all of us on the panel. And I think that would encourage either our peers that are on the edge, because a lot of jazz artists, or I think a lot of potential jazz musicians are already musicians, like maybe someone in a concert band or someone in a lower jazz band at a school, just to get that, because if they're getting supported, someone to believe in them, I think like for me, if no one was really believed in me, like my family and my friends, it wouldn't be as encouraging. But I think just like supporting the youth that already like it would be big, because there's just so many. And then the jazz education is a whole nother talk, but yeah, I think like we said, like jazz is really evolving, like it's still growing. And so I think there's still a lot of hope in it, and it should encourage, anyone who's interested. It welcomes anyone.
So I think that in terms of like jazz players and also the audience, I think the biggest way to help is if we help ourselves first of all. So like we have to make it seem like, well, it is because okay, I think jazz is cool, yet someone who doesn't think jazz is cool doesn't, well, okay, obviously they don't think jazz is cool, but okay, I guess I guess people think, sometimes people view jazz as such a distant thing. And it's like, okay, there's pop music, there's rap, blah, 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 and everything. And even though a lot of music we listen to stems from, Black American music, that's a whole different topic. But we have to show that, like, okay, we're jazz musicians and we're cool. Like, we want you to come hang. Even if you don't play jazz, like, or even if your friend doesn't play jazz, like say, oh yeah, come to this gig or even come to this rehearsal and just hang out with us. Things like that will be cool. Because I'm trying to think things like sports. It's so like it's cool to play sports. Like, you can go and hang out with all your friends and you guys can play basketball or something like that. If we start doing things like that more with jazz and stuff, that will help as well. Things like I'm trying to like figure out how to make it. I want like if we make it such like a trend kind of, but in a way that it's still keeping true to the music. So like it's just hard to convince, like hard to show someone how powerful and how fun this music can be without like, because then you go so deep and then it's like, oh well, I don't want to get into all that. But it's a whole process because I'm trying, like I always try to get people into jazz and stuff, but then it's like if all like some of my friends like all they listen to really is rap, and then I'm like, here's jazz, and then some people playing, and then like they do not even trying to understand what a 2-5-1 is, and I'm in the car like, did you hear what he just did? And they're like, bro, that's what are you talking about? There's not like no lyrics. And but in terms of like, I guess outside factors, maybe like older generations trying to help the younger generation. I just think, yeah, just support like reposting something that we do on Facebook, or just like telling your kids, oh, there's a jazz concert, we should go to that, or something like that. It's a long answer, but I don't know how to like process this whole thing because it's like it's a big deal because back then jazz was such a cool thing. I was talking to my dad and he said he'd go outside and people around, they like are playing music and stuff. He can go to his neighbor's house and they're playing and stuff. But like for me, especially where I live at, it's like there's not that many people around me. Like I have to go search for people who kind of like music or kind of like jazz, and just to be able to play. So I just think it has to be more like a cool thing, like a sport or something.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing.
Yeah, I would say in terms of having some more involvement from the youth and such, I'd say just keep open arms, this in the situation of like older performers and such, it's like we as younger musicians already think you're good. We're coming to your gig because we think you're good. We're listening to you and checking out your recordings because we think you're good. Like you vibing us and just ignoring us at your gig or whatever, that's not helping. We're there because we want to hear you, not for any other reason. So I would just say that the attitude of like, I'm older, so I'm better, or I don't need to invest in the younger generation and things. That's just, to each their own. But yeah, I would just say keep open arms and remember that you were in our position at once too.
Well, and with WMJS being an organization that does value education, I think that's really important. And when I am, well, back when we had gigs, people who are my students, I invite them to come up on the bandstand. With HCJO, I invited my students to be a part of that. Derek Brown's album. Now I don't think that I am the generation that you are referring to as older players like this. I'm hoping that you're thinking people a little bit older than me. But anyway, the way that we invite other people in to be a part of the conversation, to be a part of the story, that's really important to me. So like I always want to invite people to sit in on my sessions and learn if they want. They don't have to. I will admit that I have as much to learn as anybody. But I always like to make the invitation because I want people to feel like they're part of the scene. Tim, that's why I invited you up on that gig that I played with D3 and with Charles and Ivan. That's exactly why I did that, because I wanted you to be part of the scene. So anyway, I think you're absolutely spot on there. And yeah, I am hoping that, again, older is a moniker that's maybe reserved for some people who are, just a little bit older than I am. Anyway, so we got another question, and this one is from Eddie, the wonderful Eddie Eicher. and a terrific drummer, and just a really swell human being. He says, question, the field of music is one of few careers where trained professionals find themselves in competition for jobs with amateurs. Many of them very talented amateurs. Doctors don't need to compete with amateur physicians, and trained electricians don't need to compete with amateur electricians. But there are always plenty of talented players out there who aren't dependent on gigs to make a living and are delighted to make $100 playing an evening of jazz. And we all know it takes a heck of a lot of $100 gigs to make a living. So what can you as young professionals do to distinguish yourselves from serious hobbyist musicians and justify a higher price tag? Do you plan on combining gigs with other things like teaching? Are there specific things that you plan on doing that will ensure you make a good living in the music profession? Or do you, in fact, not plan on relying on music as your main source of income? So that one's kind of loaded, but I'm open. Yeah, what do you guys think about this question from Eddie?
It's something I've been thinking about all the time. I don't want to do anything else, like with most of my time other than music, honestly. And I realize that that's not realistic. Especially like if I want to have a family and stuff, I might have to do something else. But at the same time, my kind of vision of how that looks like is do everything I can within within music. So while I want to play and perform and stuff and record, maybe I can try to record for other people. So, do session work with a lot of other musicians. Maybe I can start my own product line or something like that, give lessons, do like master classes, things like that. I just everything that you like that I can think of doing, playing every genre of music. Oh yeah, computer programming and make an app. I really want to do that. I want to do that. I have an idea of what I want to do. But yeah, that's true. Use like other things to like help you in music. Michael's in business, so he can, he has some knowledge. He has knowledge of business and everything, so he can use that to his advantage. Okay, he can talk. Maybe he can talk to musicians on how to conduct themselves in the business world of it, because it's rough. But I just think being as versatile as you can within your style of playing and also what you're actually doing in music is what can set you apart. Because I feel like that's how it has to be, unless you like coming out with platinum records all the time.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, Mr. Iker, really love your playing. You're a beast, one of the best. But yeah, I think a big difference between young musicians like myself and some of the older peers in jazz that I've seen is that they have an audience. Like the older musicians in West Michigan really like younger musicians. I mean, In the Blues doing very great. They have a great audience. We're Tim's group and Jake. But I think building that audience like as early as possible and having like a formal relationship with your audience would help you a lot in what you're trying to do. I think that's something I try to cope with. Like I cope with a lot because like who am I trying to like because if people go to your page on Instagram, like we talk about Facebook, and they don't really know what you guys are doing, they don't see right away you're a jazz band. You guys got like 4 different styles going on, and like they're kind of confused when they're looking at your stuff. It's not organized. They're not. I don't think that's like something I've read that like they're not gonna really like they're not gonna know what to follow because they don't really know what's going on. But I think something I've learned from the older musicians is like they really treat their audience and the people that come to their gigs. Like I've seen like Dr. Kano, she'll be like the last one to leave, talking to everyone, and people are comfortable with going up. But like with the youth, you want like people to come to your gigs, but then you might not talk to them, or it's not as easy because you're young. And I've definitely experienced that. Like you're grateful for them coming, but it's hard to. Not every young person out there is gonna, greet their audience. Like I've seen most of my older, like, everyone out there. Like it's just like a thing with like technology in our era. It's like communication is really like it's changing, and so like the older musicians, like just having a conversation with a young person is going to be different than like a old, like, a veteran in jazz. So I think, yeah. And then also we were talking about social media. I think we have to value our music. And this is something I really want to learn more from older musicians is like, how much music should we be putting out? Because if this is our skill and this is our job, it's valuable. And so if we're putting it out for free, that's like something to think about, because one, you want to promote your music, but two, like you need to get paid for it. And I mean, live streams are great, but I think like that's the big difference of Instagram now and before is before, we had gigs and we're getting paid weekly, daily for stuff. And, we take a clip of that. Now we got the same content, but we're not getting paid. Like you don't get paid for anything. So I think I've seen some older musicians like stress that you should be careful about like putting stuff out there. And I it's kind of a question I'm asking too, like how much music should we put in? Because, a lot of times music is what's helping people get through COVID. So it's a really great thing and it's valuable. So I think for young musicians, we got to be careful of, I think, putting too much out because people will pay for it. It is valuable. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, kind of like piggybacking off like what Judah said, like basically there's going like learn as much as we can from like people that are like doing this now, like that are professional musicians now and that are like our veterans, of course. Like I was like a EK veteran, his name's Blake Cross. He came and he was talking to us, talking to me, my friend Sam and Dalen. He was talking to us about like the life. He's in Los Angeles. And he was just basically like telling us like how you have to be like as much of like a versatile player. Like you have to like, I mean, like you might love jazz, but then like you might get a gig and like they want you to play like smooth jazz, like something like that, or they might want you to play pop, or they might want you to play like hip hop and stuff like that. Like, you got to be like as most versatile as you can so you can get gigs and stuff like that. Like you can't just be like, because like you just said, like jazz is timeless and stuff like that, but you just can't just be like just that person that you just like, I'm strictly like doing jazz and I'm not doing anything else. Like that's kind of how I was in the beginning. Like, cause like, I mean, I didn't like start listening to like jazz, like getting really deep into it until like 8th grade. And I used to listen to like other worldly stuff and stuff like that. But I mean, like now it's like, I still listen to jazz, but like I listen to Stevie Wonder, like I listen to all of them, I listen to all of them, other different cats and stuff like that. And then also like, I was talking to another EK vet, Jay Sawyer, Dr. Sawyer's son. And he was basically like explaining to us like, like you could be like the most killing player like ever and like go out and play and stuff like that. And then but like you won't get gigs like if you don't have a good personality, like ego and like having that like that type of like mindset that like I'm the best player and I'm about to go to this jam session and stuff like that. Like you're not gonna get calls and stuff like that. Cause like, but like if you just got like one of the best personalities and like you will get calls to get gigs and stuff like that. And that's just like how Judah was saying, like, with like Dr. Kano and stuff like that, connecting with like the audience and like just spreading your arms out more and just trying to connect so you could just like, get more gigs and like get all this more opportunities to perform and like, get money and stuff like that. So it's a lot, but yeah.
Something really funny I just wanted to bring up was the fact that like I definitely have seen this a lot with musicians, and not just jazz musicians, but anybody who's like putting music out there. They'll send you a link up to their music or whatever, and that's it. And I hate that. I don't even, because honestly, I don't even care if it's a good song or whatever, because I feel like even if your purpose is to, get someone to listen to your music, I would appreciate, hey, how are you? Good, blah, blah, blah. Here's this new song I'm working on, or I just put out. That right there, is something that sets apart musicians for me. And I mean, like, I'm nobody, like I haven't made it, but still that's one thing, like if I wanted to work with someone, like that's something I would look for. And I think that that's something that people look for also though, when they want to listen to your music. Like, oh wow, he actually asked how I was. I mean, yeah, his point was to, get me to listen to his song. But little things like that is another thing that like will help set apart. But Judah, that was a good question about how much music you should put out. Honestly, it's honestly, I kind of look at music as a business card, like music that you put out, like on, Spotify, Apple Music, and stuff like that. Because I mean, the way things work, like streams, like you don't get that much, like you really don't get much money in off or stuff like that. But and again, though, if enough people listen to it, then that can pick up enough following. And so like, and if you're versatile and if you're doing a lot of different things and like, so people won't get confused, I feel like you have to have more music if you're trying to be versatile, so that even if there's a lot going on, people have more of like a database to look through. Okay, this is a lot of his jazz, standard stuff. Okay, here is his more like acid jazz and funk and stuff like that. So I mean, honestly, like if you love playing music, get as much. I feel like I kind of want to get as much out there as possible, but like just yeah, but you have to be careful too. That's the crazy part. But I think other services like your lessons, you should make people pay for those, even if it's like helping someone out. It's like that's your time. Master classes, teaching people how to do stuff, things like that. Compositions, like write them out and put those up and make people pay for like the actual music and stuff like that. Because a lot of people aren't paying for music anyway. And if music was more expensive, then people probably wouldn't pay for it anyway. They just pirate it. So, but yeah, it's a good question.
Doc, I don't know if you guys can hear me all right. I'm really sorry for the spotty connection kind of driving through the mountains. But I wanted to touch on a few quick things here. The first one is on with this question of, I guess, distinction, I guess, versatility. It's such an important thing. I mean, one of the hardest decisions of my life was actually declaring a business major instead of a jazz performance major, because jazz is everything. Jazz is like what I breathe. Music in general, but there's, like I mentioned, something so specific about jazz, right? And what I realized is, I wanted to capitalize on the skill sets that I have, right? So I said, okay, I love music and I have a skill set in music, but I also acknowledge this fact that like I have other skill sets. And I mean, for anybody watching and for anyone here, right? Like we can all acknowledge that we have other skill sets apart from music. And I think that's a really important thing to just keep in mind. Just try to always sharpen those skills and just be, wholesome individuals, inside and outside of music. And I mean, what I've realized too is, as of now, I play like with my band at Hope College Pet Shop, and we monetize that. I also give some lessons both here in Honduras and in the United States, and I kind of do that as well. But a side hustle is a side hustle. It doesn't really matter whether your side hustle is music or whether your side hustle is something else. I always urge people and to try to find different ways to, like, I guess, make income, try to find that stability, of course. And I think it can be a difficult thing, but I mean, from a lot of musicians, right, I think from what I've seen, at least, the death of a musician is when a musician doesn't know how to operate herself outside a practice room or a performance space. Like I tell a lot of musicians that I meet, like, yo, like make sure your social media is on check. Make sure you have like an active line of communication with people who might want to invite you to play somewhere, or always urge people to get good at like networking, which people say, oh, those are business skills, but musicians need to have business too. They need to know how to network. Musicians need to know how to be as professional as possible in their space, like a gig or interesting to think about. And actually, really be a form of distinction. Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Van Heber. I really agree. Every professional musician is an entrepreneur, and I think that is definitely something that can be capitalized on. And actually, something that I wanted to say just before moving on, I kind of cut out when we were still talking about the IG thing. So I follow Rick Margitza on Instagram. I don't know how many of you guys follow Rick Margitza, but he does this thing. He puts up like an idea every single day. It's like 365 days of music, and he just puts up like a crazy musical concept. Not always that crazy. He puts up like a musical concept in almost every single day, and like obviously that's not new music, but it's new concepts, new learning, and that's also on IG. So I just want to tell everybody to go check that out if they're not hip to that. So yeah, all right.
Yeah, I think firstly, in answer to the question, I think that we could do well to free ourselves of like some expectations that I think we often have as musicians. I think often like we set these really big expectations for ourselves and whatever it might be, and expectations just end up leading to disappointment later down the line. So I think that just in terms of being able to create a enjoyable and sustainable career for ourselves, like yeah, just not expecting too much out of it. You know, I think like we were talking about, jazz is an ever evolving form of music, and it's always undergoing change. And I think we just have to be ready for that and know that, like, you know, music or jazz music in 30 years probably won't look exactly like it looks right now, kind of thing. And in addition, I really like what Kevin, you said about just kind of be a better person. This is something that Jordan and I have talked, Dr. Van Hemer and I have talked a lot about. And and the thing that we talk about is that who you are as a person kind of manifests in your musicianship. You know, if you're a really arrogant off the bandstand, then the likelihood that you get on the bandstand and you're completely selfless and are just looking out for other people are probably not that great. So yeah, I think yeah, work on being a better person, and the musicianship will follow.
Yeah, absolutely. We have another question. I know you guys love questions. I love questions. Let's see. Nowadays, the barrier to releasing music is very low. Everyone can learn to use a DAW and release anything that they want. So are you guys learning to work with DAWs and VSTs, et cetera, et cetera?
Literally right before this, I was my friend and I was working on some music in Logic and everything, because we said we need to just get stuff out, and because like everybody's doing it. I mean, like, I'm learning. I know I am. I feel like I'm held back by equipment though, in terms of money, because a lot of stuff is expensive. I'm like, bro, I need an interface, so like a good interface, and they're like, yeah, $700. I'm like, I'm broke. But I mean, you can still learn, because like Ableton, it's like 90-day free trial. I'm like, bet. So I'm gonna learn that. But yeah, the learning part, I think I think the learning part is like the easy part, because I think it's fun. But I just think equipment wise, that's the hardest thing. Like if your computer doesn't, if it can't run a DAW, then it's like, I mean, you can record on your phone, but then it's like people are gonna be like, the quality isn't there. So it's just like, it's a process, but I don't know.
Yeah, like the same with that, like, yeah, literally, like right before this too, like I was just working on some like video of like my sax quartet that's putting out a video for the holidays later on this week and stuff like that. Like, and yeah, just like with equipment and stuff like that. Like I'm glad that I have parents that like, support me with music and that are like helping me be able to get the equipment with money wise, and then me using to be like working a job and stuff like that, being able to get equipment and being able to learn how to do that. Like my good friend Mitchell, he's been teaching me different things on like how to mix audio. And of course, like this generation, we can also use, of course, social media as our advantage, and like go on YouTube, learn how to like put videos together, multiple videos, and like, you know, like how you see like a lot today, like people are doing virtual big bands and like learn how to do that type of thing and stuff like that. So yeah, like right now I'm really trying my best to like learn how to do that, work with mics, learn how to mix and work with audio and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, we're the youth. If it's on the computer, we can figure it out.
Right on. Right on. That makes sense. You guys are all, you know, incredible young engineers. You're producers, which is really cool. I'm also learning how to do some of that. Man, I remember growing up and thinking, oh man, if I can just get like really good at saxophone, everything is just gonna fall into place. And I laugh at myself for ever saying that. You know, there's so much more to music, and I love what Kevin said about being a great person, and how your personality matters so much. Because, you know, when I'm thinking about who I want to teach at the college level and who I want, you know, to play in the band, I make specific hiring decisions. You know, because HCJO, everybody gets paid. You know, so I make specific decisions based on who I think I can work with, and you know, who I think will work hard and you know, buy into the, you know, the mission of the band. And so that's absolutely right on the nose, Kevin. Beautiful. So let's talk like, I don't know, somebody made a comment about 20, 30 years down the road, you know, this music will not really look the same. What do you think the music will look like 20 to 30 years down the road?
Uh, you guys all know who Jacob Collier is, right? Some say he's like modern day, like, you know, great composer. So I like checking out his stuff because really I feel like if anyone knows like where the future is going is Jacob Collier, because that man, like, he's just always grinding. Like, he knows everything about audio, like we just were talking about. He's one of the biggest. He's album of the year for Grammy. Not, he didn't get the Grammy yet, but like if he's nominated for album of the year, which is crazy. And like he has a lot of jazz influences on that, so crazy. But I think I don't really know where it's gonna be. So yeah, I'm gonna keep checking out Jake Collier though, because he's like 20 something, 30 years, he'll still be going. He'll be right there. But I know that like what I'm trying, or I guess a big approach I'm trying to do is like one foot in the past, one foot in the future. So like always learn. Like I want to learn how to swing. I need to know all that. Like Doc was saying, if you don't know that, jazz isn't going to represent, you know, well, because it was rooted in all these deep, powerful feelings. And so yeah, just always I'm gonna always do my best to try to preserve its history. But I also think it's important that we know, you know, the modern language. You know, we gotta listen to Brecker. We gotta listen to, you know, Chad Lefkowitz Brown. Like all these guys, I got modern language out, and then stuff that isn't swing, like the fusion stuff that's coming out, like, you know, Snarky Puppy, all those guys. More like there's this whole fusion is huge too. So like I think there's gonna be a lot of I think like the fusion thing is gonna grow, and like I think like live instruments will always be valued though. Like I think drums, especially like all those, like people are gonna still be playing those like 30 years from now. Like I don't think instruments are going like, you know, going anywhere really. Maybe the trombone, I don't know. But yeah, I'm gonna just do my best to like do both, like future and past.
I don't know, Iwis. I don't know. All those and stuff like that. But like yeah, like me and Judy was talking about this like I believe it was like last month or something. We had a jam session, and we were just like talking about like what we think jazz is gonna be like in like these next couple of years and stuff like that. But like, I mean, to be honest, like I wouldn't know any either because like, you know, it's just like we said, it just keep continually changing every day. But to be honest, like I would just say that like now, like we're like as we continually keep on to like grow and like jazz keep on continually grow, that we need to keep the culture and like the education like more in. We should add it more in like our performances. So like, I mean, obviously if you play, like people can still learn and stuff like that. But like, I honestly feel like, you know, maybe just like if you perform and stuff like that, maybe like speak about it a little bit. So, cause you know, like maybe down the future, like, you know, like how Drew was talking about like fusion and stuff like that, you know, it could still like be there, you know, like all this bop and stuff like that.
In terms of where I think music is going, like jazz, I've seen a lot, like fusion is big, a lot more like hip hop mixed in with jazz. That's pretty big as well. I've I've seen a lot of like, you know, like upcoming rappers and stuff wanting to have more of like a live band backing them up. I think that's cool. And then also in terms of the direction it's going, I just hope that like not like I just hope that our generation can get to a level where we can influence where the music will go. And like it like how, you know, Herbie Hancock has like, you know, he had such a big, you know, influence on, you know, music. So I think it's up to I want it to be up to us where the music goes, rather than, and I mean it has to be that way. But so I think it'll change 20 years from now. I don't know, but maybe 10 years from now, I think I definitely think like the rap side and then jazz will be like definitely come together more, and then fusion. I think fusion is going to get a lot bigger. But I kind of also see it going backwards too, because like that tends to happen with like things like clothes. Like people go backwards, you know. It's like we was just wearing snapbacks, but then they was wearing snapbacks back then. Or what could happen is the culture could go backwards in terms of how it was back in like the 1900s, but it would be a more fusion, like a fusion vibe, right? So you know, it's not like a jazz club, it's like a jazz gym people go to and they pull out their EWs and stuff like that. It just it's different, but like the same vibe, but I guess in a different style of music. I just hope that wherever it goes, I just hope that we can still like preserve where the like the, you know, the original like part of the music, you know, like and the roots of it. But I guess it's gonna, I think fusion, but like it has to be I don't know how to always put like make the roots visible in fusion like music. And so like once people figured that out, I think it's going to be a lot. I think that's where it's going to go.
You know, I kind of I was thinking about how jazz is such a worldly music. And I, you know, again, I think that's a tough question. But something that I do actually hope, and something that I have seen, maybe I'm just seeing it till now, but like I look at cats like you know, like Christian Scott or like Kendrick Scott, and then like I've been digging into like some Israeli jazz, which is crazy, and then I've been checking out like here in Honduras we have a band called Iberi Luz Jazz, and they kind of conjured up a genre with some of Honduran dance rhythms and jazz. It's called punta jazz. And I hope jazz moves in that direction. Like I hope I see more amalgams of like very unique rhythms and harmonies and melodies from different places around the world coming into kind of what we all of these you know mixture of sounds that we've come to recognize as jazz. I think that's super cool, and honestly, like when I try to compose, I always try to make sure I'm like obviously, you know, going back to the tradition. So like actually what Judah said, that was really cool. You know, one foot in the past, one foot in the future. always try to like be like, okay, like, yeah, I'm a Honduran jazz musician, so like I want to bring something from my country to the sound, and kind of incorporate it there. So I hope people around the world are doing that with jazz, right? I think that'd be.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I'm doing with my record. I'm a Korean American jazz musician, and so like you hear that, in the record and in certain song choices that I've made, certain harmonic choices, textures. But I wanted to go back to something that Houston said about you're hoping that the younger generation is part of driving, the force of jazz. So, Michael, you transcribed Charlie Parker's solo this semester for your juries in 1942 on Cherokee. Do you know how old Bird was when he recorded that?
Wasn't he like 20, 22,
He was
23 years
22. He was 22 years old because remember it's 2020. It's 2020,
Painful.
and it's Bird's centennial. So here's the thing: in the bebop era, are you guys hip to Mary Lou Williams? I always got to talk jazz history because I teach jazz history, so I got to put it in there. Mary Lou in the 40s, when a lot of her fellow musicians were not going to Minton's Playhouse and were like, oh man, stay away from those young musicians. They're idiots. They don't know what they're doing. Mary Lou was going to hang out. And she was saying, what can I learn? Because she knew that the heart of the music was in the younger generation. And I think there's a lesson there. Because anytime, I mean, obviously there are musicians of all ages who are doing great things. But if you look at the major, one of the most trailblazing trumpet players, Clifford Brown, how young was he when he died? Notice how I say how young, not how old.
I believe he was like 23 years old.
23.
That's exactly right. Yep. How what? We already talked about Tony Williams, but how old was Herbie Hancock when he played with the Second Great Quintet?
See, 20?
Yeah, about somewhere in that vicinity. So it is the younger generation who's pushing boundaries, who's seeing where the music can go, as well as where it's been. So I think there's a lesson in there for supporting younger musicians. When we are no longer in a global pandemic, we have to get all of you guys together. We're gonna have a hang. We're gonna have a session. We got to put you all on a gig together. It's gonna be great. I have one last question, and this question again, I just kind of want to go around, starting with Tim. And that question is, if you were to tell musicians now, you are all young musicians, but if you were to give your younger selves any pieces of advice, young musicians, what would you say? Like about music, about jazz, about life, anything?
It would be to stop judging yourself. I think that I've lost so much time because I've just been dwelling on, oh, I can't do this, oh, I can't do that, oh, this person sounds better, oh, this person sounds better, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? It doesn't really matter. I think, yeah, it doesn't matter. It would be, don't judge yourself.
Michael, you want to go?
Yeah, I can go. I'd probably just tell myself, I'd probably just tell myself to never forget like what music brings to me. It kind of honestly goes along with kind of what Tim was saying, right? But I think that like when I try to explain to people what it means to be obsessive about music, I find it very difficult, because for people who don't understand, like they're like, why do you practice so much? Like, why do you like? I don't know how to verbalize it, right? But with that same obsession, that passion, that joy, also comes heavy scrutiny, also comes like, you're not enough, like, oh, you should be there, all these sorts of things. But I would definitely tell myself, like, just don't forget what it brings you. Like, it brings you nothing other than joy. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, it brings you nothing other than joy. And when I am taking a joyous approach towards music, towards practice, towards improvisation, towards, jam sessions, that's when I'm at my best. So that's definitely what I would tell myself in order to just be my best always as a musician and as a person.
I think I would tell myself that playing music is more than your skill level on your instrument. Um, I wish I had understood that going through high school, for like practicing a lot. I thought I was okay, but yeah, I wasn't listening how I was supposed to. I wasn't writing or anything, and like listening. That's the other thing. Like I just thought, okay, I can play the saxophone. Like I thought I knew how to play the saxophone, and I was like, okay, I'm good, right? And it's like, nah, it's way more. It's way more than that. It's like, and I wish I knew that, because like once I found that out, I loved it more. Um, and so to like, I just have to like, I would tell myself, yes, love the music, but also like go beyond just what your instrument is.
Well, I feel like what I would say to myself is like stay humble and like don't forget about the fundamentals, because like with like people like some musicians feel that like fundamentals like sticking with them, and like how you like first learned the instrument and what's like certain things you have to do, like scales, doing drones, like all these different things like that. Like you need those things to like continually get better. Like, I mean, you might seem like it's like that it's easy, but like it's not. And it's like it's like the fundamentals is like what's like the root of your plant, and like what continually makes you like get better every day. So like stick with fundamentals, and like, just like stay humble, stay true to yourself. And like I said earlier, like just be yourself, and like, personality is like basically the number one thing. So like if you just like not acting like yourself and stuff like that, just be true to yourself.
Kevin, I think you just made Mr. Nixon and Mr. Whirling and Mr. Ross very, very proud when you're talking about sticking with fundamentals and drones and scales and everything. So not that they weren't proud of you this whole time, but I can imagine a multitude of teachers feeling really good about how you said that. Nicely said, Kev. Judah.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I'm not too negative of a person, so like I kind of am happy where I am right now. Like I'm not like, oh, I wish I changed that much, just because like I feel like I've been like really fortunate to have a musical family, support, mentors, a lot of different mentors that help me. So like I have so much to learn, and I think if I started out like Kevin said, fundamentals, like slowing down, like I would just pull out the trombone and try to play like Twinkle Twinkle by Ear or something like right when I pulled out. But if I just sat down, with fundamentals, but I mean, I might have been a different player if I did that. Like, of course, I'm gonna continue to grow my fundamentals, but I think we're all on the same journey and trying to get better every day. So, I guess I tell myself like listen to my family, because like a lot of them would give me advice. They still always give me advice, but my mom, if you want to play fast, you gotta play slow. And I'd be like, but mom, I won't play fast. Like she's a musician, and then like I wouldn't listen to her advice until I heard like a professor say it, like Robert Edwards, a trombone player. He's like, man, you gotta slow down. And I was like, if I just listened to my mom when I was, 10, or like ever since I was born, like everyone in my family plays music. So I guess just I would tell little Judah, be like, listen to your family, and just like wrap yourself in their wisdom, because like they know what's best for you.
Well, I would just like to take a second to thank all of our panelists, Tim Greamy, Houston Patton, Judah Guerra, Kevin Brewster, and Michael Pineda. All of you guys are incredible. I have so much respect, so much love for all of you and your wonderful music. You guys are incredible. You're the next generation. You're the future of this music. And you know what? Every day you make me really proud of that future that I'm gonna have, and I can't wait to see it unfold. Beautiful job tonight. Thank you again so much for sharing your perspective, for sharing your energy, your love for this great music. I wanted to thank you, our audience. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening. We went a little bit longer than I intended. But man, I couldn't stop listening to what these guys were saying. Just an incredible group of students. So really terrific. That's our talk for tonight. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you next week.